Hello, it's Friday. Tate McDermott is the real deal, and this is the Rock and Roll Podcast. Today I'm joined by Joe and Harry. How you doing, lads?
Hi, Johnny.
All right, how's it going?
Good stuff, good stuff. And on this mini pod, we're going to preview this week's games from Super Rugby Aotearoa and Super Rugby AU. Let's start with New Zealand then, and on tomorrow at 8 a.m, we've got the Highlanders hosting the Crusaders. Some sort of, I'll just go through some of the changes and then we'll offer it open to discussion. So the Highlanders, Dan Leonard-Brown's coming at loosehead. Scott Gregory's dropped out of the whole 23 altogether, with Michael Collins coming in at 15. So the Landers have now had their third 15 in as many games. Nangi Punavani's coming on the wing for Sam Gilbert again, who drops out altogether. While the Crusaders have really rung the changes, with Havili coming in at 15, Jordan's gone to the wing, with Reese moving to the bench. Lester Funganuku gets his first start of Super Rugby Aotearoa. Mitch Drummond's in at 9 for his first start, with Ireti Arani coming on the bench, with Bryn Hall seemingly rested for this week. Changes in the back row again, with Tom Christie, the very exciting Tom Christie, coming in at 7, with Ethan Blackadder at 6. So Cullen Grace and Billy Harmon dropping out. And then on the bench, they've got Ollie Jaeger, Quinton Strange, Sione Havani, and Fetu Paia coming onto the bench. Apologies for those pronunciation. The first question I really want to propose to anyone who wants to start with this is this a flex of the Crusaders' strength in depth, or is it a show of complete disregard for the Highlanders with the amount of changes they've made?
I don't think the overall quality level has decreased that dramatically. I think it's just a natural rotation. You can't play a best team every single week. I think the only real downgrade is Blackadder. But at the start of the tournament, we were looking at Tom Christie being their starting 7. Mitchell Drummond and Bryn Hall are more or less interchangeable. I think it's just resting Hall, him having played 60, 70 minutes in every game so far. And then Funganuku and Havili are maybe a tiny step below Bridge and Reese, but not dramatically so. I think it's just a bit of natural rotation more than any particular statement.
Yeah, I think it was coming, wasn't it? It was always going to happen. You've got to use your squad. A good strong, especially a squad as strong as the Crusaders, needs to use all of them in order to get the best out of all of them. Like, you don't want to just run them all ragged. But as you say, the likes of Funganuku, David Havili, Ethan Blackadder, they've all been in and around that squad anyway, just haven't quite started just yet. And I think it's a good opportunity for them to start and get some minutes under their belt. But the likes of Mitch Drummond, he's been awesome when he's come on so far. David Havili's played really well as when he's come on, so probably deserve that start. So I think it's a lot of changes in terms of just sheer quantity, but as you say, I don't think the quality's really dropped. And it'd be good to see a few of those, especially Funganuku, because I've not really seen a lot of him yet. It'd be good to see him get a proper run out.
Yeah, on Funganuku, he was very strong in Super Rugby 2020, the normal competition. Interesting that George Bridge kept his place. Obviously, last week, Sevu Reece got 2 try assists and looked definitely the brighter out of the 2. That might be because Bridge hasn't maybe seen them much as the ball was Reece. But yeah, it gives Bridge another opportunity to continue there.
Bridge isn't in the squad.
Hmm?
Did you say Bridge was in the squad?
No, he is. He's still starting. It's Sevu Reece that's dropped to the bench.
Bridge isn't in the squad,
isn't he?
The wings are Funganuku and Jordan for Havili.
Oh, sorry then. Yeah, Bridge is completely gone. Sorry,
Bridge is completely out. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I forgot Jordan had moved across. Okay, that's interesting.
I think I'm here, isn't it?
Yeah, that's interesting. The Jordan winger's interesting, but fine.
I think it's just because he's been playing well. They want to keep him in the side, yet let Havili have his game in his preferred position. So it'd be interesting to see what he does. And a few of the things that he has done, like when he scored that try off Sevu Reece, that's wing type play, isn't it? Both of his tries really were wing type play. So I think he'll still be good in that role.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see Tom Christie back. He was very prominent in the Crusaders team before they went on the break. He's very exciting 7 if you've not seen him play before. Got a great offloading game. He's very explosive. I think in general that if you're talking about back rows anyway, the Crusaders back row, Cullen Grace, of course, was brilliant, but we've not seen a lot from Herschel Douglas, and we didn't see a lot from Billy Harmon in the first 2 weeks. So Christie will need a big game, especially obviously they're going up against Frizzell in Tua in the Highlanders back row. It should be quite interesting. Any key matchups, Harry, from you?
I think Highlanders have gone for a slightly lighter weight front row than they have going sort of from the beginning of the tournament. So I suppose they might just be conceding the scrum and hoping to match the Crusaders for work rate, given that it's going to be reasonably dry in the indoor stadium. Otherwise, it's quite a conventional Highlanders team, not really being able to fix any of the problems that they've had so far. They've just slightly alternated which players are in which position. Michael Collins should help a bit at fullback, a bit more experience than the guys that they've tried so far. I'm not sure what his injury has been or the reason he's not been being picked. It was the water boy last week. I'm not sure if you noticed. So he's been around the squad and is clearly capable was able to run with the water. So it wasn't a dramatic injury. So hopefully that helps. Kept the strong back row, so in that sense, the Highlanders will be able to keep up.
One thing I've just noticed, I don't know if you mentioned it before, Ash Dixon drops to the bench and they've got Liam Coltman in at hooker. Dixon's played quite well so far. His line-out throwing has been quite decent, so I don't know much about Liam Coltman, but it's going to be interesting to see how that goes, because that line-out is one of their key strengths, so got to make sure that doesn't really drop in quality.
That's a key change there as well. And obviously, Dan Leonard Brown coming in to start as well, with Aidan Johnston dropping to the bench as well. It's quite another interesting one. Let's go to predictions then. What we're thinking, Harry, where's your thoughts going?
I suspect the Crusaders will win, Johnny. I couldn't really tell you by how much. They might use it as a chance to bring on some of those. I know Ollie Jaeger is quite young. I assume George Bauer is as well.
Yeah,
they might take off Moody quite early. Give them some minutes. Quinton Strange as well, given that Dunshea and Whitelock have played every minute of the tournament so far or nearabouts.
Yeah.
And a few other young players on that Crusaders bench. I think the margin of victory probably depends on how early they introduce most of those guys. Yeah, I suspect the Crusaders will win.
Joe, any different opinions on that?
No, not really. I think there's a few things that are interesting with that lineup. As you say, it's a closed stadium, quite a good pitch, a good surface, and the Crusaders are going to love that. They're going to lap that up, and they haven't really, as we said, they're not really dropped in quality, especially in that back line. A few decent players coming in there, so they could be really dangerous. And with the Highlanders, for one of their strengths being the line out, dropping their line out thrower, their hooker, could be an interesting one. If that doesn't go well for them, they might struggle. So when you look at those team sheets, it's just lacking just a little bit of quality. But we've said that the last few weeks, and they've still played well and they've still challenged. So this Highlanders team is becoming quite a difficult team to really call. But Crusaders team is actually quite often quite an easy thing to call. So it might be that their quality just takes over. They'll almost certainly win it. It would be interesting to see the margin, but do you think if they score those tries on that nice surface, it should be more than 10? I think so. Yeah, we'll see.
I'd say despite the changes to the Crusaders, they still look very strong. These guys they've not just like plucked guys out of the Canterbury ITM Cup side. These guys are playing Super Rugby this season and previous season, so they're very strong. They're under the roof, so the weather's not going to be impactful. Yes, the Highlanders have got the zoo behind them, but they're still lacking Josh Oney, Milner Scudder, these key X-factor players. So I'm going to say the Crusaders by at least 12 to 15, and I'm going to even predict that Fanganuku and Jordan to score. So if I get that wrong, lads, I'll owe you a beer when we can actually go to the pub again, which is obviously after this Saturday.
Fairly soon, yeah.
Let's move on to Sunday then. It's been quite a busy week for the Hurricanes. So it's, as I say, Sunday's game is the Chiefs versus Hurricanes, 4 a.m. Kickoff, and then it's repeated again at 10 o'clock on Sky. So a couple of transfer news for the Hurricanes is they've signed Simon Hickey, who was formerly of Edinburgh and has played for the Auckland side in the Mitre 10 Cup. 26-year-old, so he's still got a lot of ahead of him. So yeah, he's not as old as I thought he was, but he's coming to the rest of the season, the competition. So they've obviously identified as 10 being an issue, not an issue, let's say, sorry, but an area that they're lacking in real depth anyway. And the unfortunate news that they've had to let Carlos Spencer go due to financial constraints of COVID-19. So that's a shame, because obviously Carlos Spencer's an absolute legend of New Zealand rugby. So, but hopefully, as an audible closes for him, I'd love to see some Premiership side or some top 14 side pop him up, because he's got fantastic offer to the game. So looking at the Chiefs team, for me, there's only one real player to note here, and that's on the bench coming back. The Chiefs have relatively kept the same side, but Triple T's back, ladies and gentlemen. So Tia Taroa Tongaranganui's back. That's definitely not how you pronounce his name, but
absolutely not.
So, but Triple T, that's what they call him, Triple T, is back. He's very exciting. 9, sort of been in and around, talked about a while for the All Blacks, sort of reserve 9 role. So, yeah, it's great to see him back. Canes-wise, you've got Peter Munga-Jensen's coming for Vince Arso, the offloading machine that's Vince Arso that's not very effective at the moment. He's the nephew of Tana Amunga, the legendary All Black 13. His brother is the Highlanders winger, which I mentioned in the preview podcast a few weeks ago now. Sarvir continues at 8, who's been impressive with the impressive Duplessis Karifi at 7. But the big news and the big talking point is that the Hurricanes have got Geordie Barrett is back at 15. So, Joe, how important is he going to be for the Canes team this week?
Yeah, massively. I think Chase Tiatia has been okay, but they've sort of been lacking a bit of kind of seniority, a bit of stability at times, the Hurricanes, especially their defence and with their kicking as well to a certain degree. So him as a senior head in there, being also a very good player in his own right, would be really, really useful. But just for me, there's a few players that I kind of mentioned in the preview pod. You just mentioned Umaga Jensen's brother. A few of those that I mentioned were Geordie Barrett, Jacobus van Wyk. Not really seen either of them yet. So to see them on the starting line-out is really important. Hopefully that they'll go well. Hopefully he's not really suffering too much after that injury. Hopefully he hits the ground running. But yeah, that matchup with Mackenzie is going to be tasty. 2 players that are All Black quality and have played quite a high standard. But the biggest thing for me, looking at the kind of the matchups and looking at the Chiefs team, is their centre partnership is obviously quite changed. The Hurricanes is as well with Umaga Jensen, but like Leonard Brown stepping out, he's not in the 23. Tapia moving into 12. I've not seen much of Tumua Manu, but I'm sure he's a good player. But obviously both teams kind of playing around a little bit with their combinations, so it's going to be interesting to see what that's like.
Yeah, I've been doing a quick look to see why Leonard Brown's not playing for the Chiefs. Did he pick up a knock?
I don't know, but you've got to imagine he has, because a player of that seniority and that quality for a team that needs a win, you don't drop your All Black 12 then, do you?
Concussion, it seems like.
Oh, really? Okay.
This article. Okay, well, that's a shame. Hopefully he gets back soon. I suspect the Chiefs have a bye in the next couple of weeks, which will...
They do, because they've played every game so far.
Yeah, exactly. But I think Geordie Barrett, as you mentioned, I think he'll really, really help bringing Lam and Van Veek and Lamape to a slightly lesser extent into the game more.
Yeah.
Having a bit more passing range out of the back, using him a little bit in the same way that the Blues are using his brother. Hopefully that'll get the Canes moving again, moving better than they have been so far.
Yeah, and when I was kind of previewing them to begin with, it's like they're 2 sort of real playmakers outside the 10, who's obviously going to be a natural playmaker, but Garden Batchup isn't, he's not the highest quality 10 in this tournament. But 2 of their real kind of playmakers that set up most of their tries are Mape and Barrett, and they kind of use them both intertwined to, as you say, put Cobus Van Wyk and Ben Lam through for tries. So I'll be excited to see that, see if they can get back up to somewhere near running how they were before lockdown hit. But yeah, it's going to be exciting to see him back.
Yeah, agreed. And Alamalo is back on the bench for the Chiefs, so hopefully he in the 23 shirt, hopefully he can get on. I'm not sure what his issues have been. I think it was meant to be illness. I think that he dropped out last minute from last week's game. but hopefully he's back to 100% and can have an impact for the Chiefs when he comes on. Certainly a player that they, obviously, while Nana Saturo and Wainu have been playing well, any team would miss Alamalo. So that should help them.
For me, I really like the battle between Webber and TJ Perenara at 9. I think that's going to be very exciting. Yeah. Both sides both sides have not won in this competition. They need to get the ball wide. They need to start playing more rugby than they've done in the last few weeks. As I say, weather might be an issue again. I don't know what it's forecast, but as I say, because it's in the afternoon, not in the evening, you hope there might still be better weather. Anyway, my sort of main point is that they're the key link between the forwards and the backs, in the sense that the Chiefs and the Canes have both got similar forward packs. They're both going to get over the gain line. They're going to get the ball, but Webber and TJ have got to be quicker, and not quicker. They've got to be quick with the ball release. Webber has had a relatively quiet Super Rugby Aotearoa, and I think the impact of Triple T on the bench might give him a bit of a rocket up the backside, that if he doesn't take the game to the Canes like we know he can do, Gatland can bring Triple T off the bench, who will come on and light it up. So yeah, that for me, that's an exciting thing. If TJ as well can get the ball in the right areas, and they can get the ball out to Van Wyk and Pat Lam, it's going to be a very close game. But for me, I'll start with my prediction, really, as I'm sort of speaking, is I think with the Barrett coming back at 15, he needs to have a more impactful thing that Bowden's done at the Blues. Bowden's slotted nicely into the Blues, but Geordie has to come back into this team and run it and have a real impact on the game if the Canes are going to take anything out of this. I'm going to say the Canes by 3 or 5 points. I think they're just going to edge them out, but it's going to be really, really tight. Joe, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one to call, especially playing away from home. Both historically two quite good teams that not playing very well at the moment, needing wins. So without a doubt, it's going to be close. It's going to be a hard-fought match. I'm struggling to back the Canes because I know how kind of up and down they've been recently, but so the Chiefs. So yeah, it's going to be close. I think I don't know what the weather's like. I don't know if either of you have looked at that, but I think should be dry. Okay, yep. Be an interesting matchup then. I am slightly leaning more towards the Chiefs being at home. The likes of Warren Gatland isn't going to want to go that long without a win. He's going to be really pushing them hard. So going to be close, but I think the Chiefs might just nick it.
Yeah, the Chiefs have been improving every week so far, and with it being Geordie's first game back, it might be a bit early for him to completely take over the game. Yeah. Whereas this is now Kane's second game or third game?
Second.
Second game. So he's fully up to speed and leading this Chiefs back well. They were much, much better last week than they were in the previous week. So probably Chiefs to edge it, but it could be quite a close one, if not the highest quality game we've seen so far.
Yeah, it's a really good prospect, isn't it? It could be a very, very good game, very exciting game, and I hope that it is. Could be an exciting one to watch.
Speaking of high quality games, moving across into Super Rugby AU, we just had the first game between the Reds and the Waratahs, a high scoring 32-26 victory for the Reds. We're not going to go into the detail here because we'll save that for Sunday's review of the games of the weekend. But if you've not seen it, go watch the highlights. Tate McDermott at 9 looks the absolute real deal, as Harry mentioned on Wednesday's preview pod. Seriously good. And who's the 13, Harry, for the Reds?
Hunter Paisami.
He's very, very dangerous. I think he'll push Conundrum for the 13 spot, and John Bataille as well in that role. So yeah, he's one to watch. But let's preview the Brumbies game against the Rebels, which is in Canberra tomorrow. Joe, do you want to start us off? What your initial thoughts on this Brumbies team is?
Yeah, they're a team with some quality. They've got some very good players in and around their squad, the likes of Folau Fainga and Kurandrani are some of their better players, slightly more senior, had time with the Wallabies. And they've got a few other decent players in there, as I spoke the other week about McCaffrey and the Toms fullback and on the wings. So they're a team with some quality, and they've got some wins, admittedly before lockdown, but they had some wins under the belt and were playing well. So that you'd like to think that they're kind of the favourites going into this tournament. But as we kind of said before, we looked at the Aotearoa tournament. These teams all use their time off differently, and it'll just be more interesting to see in their first game back how they've really used that time, and have they kept up to speed, have they kept up to fitness, what's their tackling going to be like after little breaks. So yeah, the Brumbies, I think, are a good squad and are capable of some quality rugby, so it'll be interesting to see what they do.
It's clear from reading the news this week that the Rebels have taken this game very seriously, and as they should do, really, because it's the competitive rugby. But they obviously got to Canberra a few days before than they needed to, so they were actually best prepared for the game, and to acclimatise to the travel, which is rightly so. I mentioned on Wednesday on the preview pod about how the Rebels have got an exceptionally strong backline, and they've really, really gone hard in the first game, which is really exciting. So their backline is Hayla Petty, Australian international. Andrew Kellaway, I talked in the pod about being the top try scorer from the 2020 competition. Reece Hodge is in at 13, not usually his main position, but again, Australian international. Billy Meeks has been solid for them at 12 this year. He really wants that 12 Australian jersey. Corin Betty's on the other wing with Matt Tamua. Congratulations to Matt Tamua. He's going to win his 100th game of Super Rugby tomorrow, which is great, considering he's played a lot of rugby, especially in the last couple of seasons in England, in Leicester. It's quite impressive. He's come back and got his 100th game, and he's still in the prime of his career. And then you've got Luwens at 9 as well. That's a really, really exciting Rebels team. Something to pick out as well, which I did mention in one of the first podcasts when we were sort of reviewing Super Rugby, was Mark Stolberg has signed for the Rebels, who was at the Sunwolves. He was the top line-out taker in that competition by a considerable way. So he's going to be very, very important in that second row for the Rebels, which I mentioned on Wednesday, have got who have some sort of, their pack isn't as particularly strong if you compared it to the Brumbies, and they're going to need him to work exceptionally well in that second row, because as Harry talked about on Wednesday, the Brumbies have got a very solid line out and one of the best mauls in the game at the moment. Harry, initial thoughts on any of the matchups from those Rebels and Brumbies?
I think you've said most of the points. I would be wary of overestimating the Rebels based on the names on the team sheet, rather than what they actually end up being able to do. Tamua is probably the most reliable, followed by Bill Meeks, but beyond that, the rest of that backline can be anywhere between amazing and completely anonymous in their games, and they won't be helped really by the fact that their back row is hard-working, if not particularly high. Sort of, they wouldn't really start for any New Zealand teams, let's say. They're not those kinds of back rowers. They're very much hit the rucks, make the tackles, try and keep up with the play. They're not creating anything themselves really. Whereas the Brumbies back row, Valentini is a very strong carrier, good line-out option, and Pete Samu is just fantastic, absolutely rapid for a number 8 and very, very good hands. Not to mention the work that they end up doing in the line-out drives, which I expect the Brumbies will make good use of, given that it's something they can work on and they will have been working on in these weeks of training leading up to now. Worth keeping an eye out on Noah Lalicio, the Brumbies 10. I wasn't sure if he would come back into this tournament starting, but he's sort of not a running 10, but a very reliable, good kicker out of hand. Sort of finds people in space. He's quite a good counterpoint to Joe Powell, who's very exciting and tries everything from anywhere, having a slightly calmer, more steady 10. They work quite well as a duo. I'm not familiar with Mackenzie Hansen, but Wright, Simone, Kurajani and Muirhead is a very strong 11 to 14 for the Brumbies backline. So I think the Brumbies are looking quite good for this game. Reece Hodge, I expect they've put him there because in attack he doesn't really do a lot, but his defence is some of the best for an Australian outside back. So I think they've got him there opposite Kurajani because they know how dangerous he can be.
Yeah, and that was my sort of key battle was between Hodge and Kurandrani. You've got two goodish ball carriers with the offloading game. Hodge has potentially got more of a kicking option because of he can play on the wing and at fullback, which Kurandrani, who's that sort of classic 13 runs hard, offloads, carries well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that dynamic. And as I say, I think they've put Hodge in there, like you made the point about, because they've got an Australian, because he's an Australian international, they've got him in there because they have to have him in there, to be honest. So I'm guessing you're going for the Brumbies in that regard, Harry?
Yeah, for sure.
Joe, thoughts on who will take it?
Yeah, similar. I think probably the Brumbies. I'm not sure. It might be a tight game. Hopefully it'll be an interesting one with both these teams back after a long layoff. But I think, probably the Brumbies will probably take it. Yeah.
I'll play devil's advocate and go for the Rebels. I do think that back line, if it can all click together, is very dangerous. I think Tamua at fly half, we've seen what he can do in Leicestershire, one of the promising players they had before he moved back to the Rebels last year. I think he's got the ability to create things, but as Harry said, the Rebels 4-pack just has to do the basics. Stolberg's just got to take the line out. They don't need to do anything flashy. They just need to win their own ball and just get the ball out to the backs. I don't think the Rebels will, if we've learned anything from the Reds and Waratahs game, it's going to be quite a high score and they're going to chuck the ball around. The defensively stuff might not be up there because they've not played for a few weeks. So we're probably hopefully going to see some more tries. I would love to see the Rebels edge it. Though in the back of my mind, I'm seeing that the Brumbies are going to be favourites of this competition.
Just on the Rebels from a sort of attacking lineup perspective, Jordan Uelese, the hooker, he had a really, really good season and a good World Cup for the Australia under-20s a couple of years ago. He's much more of a hooker who's exciting in the loose than necessarily his set-piece work, but given that he was part of the Australia squad for the most recent Senior World Cup, I'm sure he's been working on that. And Matt Phillip was certainly the pick of the Australian second rows in the start of the normal Super Rugby season. So I expect the Rebels will be hoping that between Phillip and Stolberg, they'll have a reasonably reliable lineup for Australian standards, at least.
That sort of nicely finishes off this podcast. We will see you on Sunday for the review of this weekend's games. And I'll leave you with a point of, will Geordie be the jackhammer the Canes need to pass the Chiefs? Comment what your thoughts on below to that on our Instagram or Twitter or on the YouTube. That's amazing. As I say, give us a like, share and subscribe and enjoy this weekend's rugby as the pubs reopen. I'll see you on Sunday for a beer, lads. See you later.
See you, Johnny.
See you later.